cleanse the runoff water
What's
of the
the
oil
suggestion?
and contaminants. You need a larger storm scepter, or
Okay.
this thing isn't going to work.
What's
that?
Podium, please.
Speak at the podium because we're on tape. So
You need you need a larger storm scepter. The 400.
So your suggestion is
You need to redesign that, whatever it is that.
that our peer review has told us was adequate for the site, and
Well, I mean, you've got acres of asphalt with.
okay.
Okay.
Your
Well,
suggestion is that
and-
you would like it to be larger. I think we
It has to be larger.
can accept, can hear that.
Project
What-
smaller.
So, I haven't heard from you yet, so if you would like to come up to the podium.
I actually just have a procedural question.
Yes.
Mary Westervelt, 18 Pepin Avenue.
Yes.
My question is, I wasn't here at the first meeting, and I didn't know that you made that request.
It wasn't actually at the first meeting, it was,
Okay, I didn't hear it if it was at the last. So it's clear that you want something specific, and I didn't come prepared to give you what you wanted. So, and I felt a little pressure at these meetings because I can see that you're like trying to move us ahead, which is great. It's, you know, we should have that in our boards. But I'm feeling a little conflicted because I'm not prepared to answer your question, but I don't know if I'll have another opportunity.
I mean, I think that's something that depends a little bit on the board discussion, which probably we're gonna have a tiny, tiny little bit of, and then we'll have a little bit
How
more
about I
next time.
clarify timelines
But-
regarding the 40B process? Would that be helpful so that you would understand? Okay, so the application was submitted. The board has until the end of August, I think it's August 28th, to close the public hearing. So there could be 3 more meetings
Right.
of public hearing for this. Once it's closed, they have 40 days to draft a decision. So that would be early October at the very latest of a decision being drafted. But the public hearing must be closed by Chapter 40B, Mass General Law, within 6 months of the application submission date, which would be August 28th.
Okay, so we
does that, I mean, I don't know what the board is going to decide to do within those next couple meetings, but that's the timeline that they're working under.
Okay.
So that's maybe why you're sensing the rushing, because they have a
We're like
very,
half done.
it's not a special permit process which can be continued on and on and on. They are mandated to have all the hearing completed within 6 months.
And
So
again, the other
may-
thing that you also might not have heard since you weren't you haven't always been here, is that you don't have to come to the meeting for us to hear you. You can make submissions.
I've
and-
actually
And
submitted
I know,
a
I was
letter.
gonna say, when you
Yeah.
said your name, I did recognize your name. So,
Yeah.
you know, to the extent that, you know, you wanna go back and think about if there are changes that could be made that you think would improve the project. I mean, you know, basically, like, as the gentleman just said, like, there's a very high bar for us, given what we're allowed to consider, that would cause us to determine that we couldn't issue a permit.
Right.
You know, we can either issue a permit with conditions, or we can deny the permit. And the bar for denying the permit is quite high. And so we can issue a permit with conditions. I mean, you know, there obviously are constraints on what conditions and when and why, but, like, you know, it's more likely that we would be in a position to be able to ask for some small concessions that might actually have a big impact in making it better, than that we would be in a position where we would have a basis to deny the whole project.
So the question that I have, I appreciate both of your responses. The question I have is, what is our timeline for responding to the specific question that you've just posed, or I've just heard?
I guess at this point, I would think, you know, after tonight, if you could do it in writing before the next meeting, that would probably be the most helpful, because I think we are sort of, you know, trying to start to narrow down, and of course, you know, to the extent that we're asking for changes or, you know, wanting additional information from the applicant, they deserve some notice. You know, like, it's not fair for us to suddenly come to them in July and say, you need to respond to this, 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 and this. Oh, and we have to close the hearing, you know, in a month, so you need to do this within 2 weeks. Like, you know, we're trying to get it narrowed down to the list that we have of concerns, so that we can, you know, conclude in a thoughtful process.
And that
So-
would also include questions like the one that Amy Heflin raised about the sewer system that she didn't realize you wanted to hear last meeting.
Right, yeah. Right, so, you know, I think at this point, generally, if people can give us stuff, you know, in writing before the next meeting, that would be really helpful. I'd like there to be some time at the next meeting to have sort of one, you know, I think maybe the last meeting can be where we aim to have our last public comment, hopefully. We might change that, but I think we need to move on to sort of some discussion amongst us, and you know, it's helpful to have all the information before we really get into that. So to the extent that there, you know, people have new comments, I mean, there's been a lot of, you know, things we've gotten in writing and then we've heard about it again. You know, we read what we get, we sit here, we hear. So to the extent that there's new stuff, probably next meeting would be the, you know, the last time for that. And I would certainly encourage people to make any submissions in writing prior to that, just because it's a little bit more, I feel like it's a little bit more useful of our time, because of course, you know, when I sit and read something, I can go back, I can read a part, like I don't know, maybe I digest it better.
Thank you.
That would be.
So what I'm hearing you say is that we have 2 to 3 weeks, essentially, to respond to the questions that you've posed and to add anything that we feel has not been considered
Yeah.
to the
Yeah, because
mix.
Yeah.
The reality is we need time to digest the questions or concerns, figure out what we need to pose to the applicant so they have time to respond and still meet that 180-day timeline,
Right.
because that is creeping up on us very quickly.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that
no, I appreciate
we
that.
understand, because as you've mentioned, people do have a lot that they want to throw into the
Right.
mix.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you do not want to end the meeting and have people feel like they didn't have a chance to be heard, so I want it to
Absolutely.
be
No,
very
I
clear.
appreciate the clarity. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Amy Heflin, 10 Pepin Avenue. I have a positive change. Triple the size of the park at least. The neighborhood needs a park. A real park, a place to throw a frisbee, hit a baseball. The green space is a part of our master plan, after all. The residents have asked and asked and asked and asked to preserve green space. A pocket park is not what the residents had in mind. More than tripling at least the space there, to me, and in many residents' mind, would be a positive change. This would solve a lot. Of course, it's going to change the design and change the number of units. But as we've heard time and again, changing the density is going to solve a lot of these woes we've got going on here and these concerns, everything, health issues, possible lawsuits, whatever. Upping the green space is really going to be great. Hey, Pleasant Green even has a big sizable park. We don't. We asked for that day one, back almost 2 years ago in the Eastworks public meeting buildings. I mean, our public meeting, days, it was like Saturdays. This has not been addressed. We've been rigidly fit in to the applicant's plan. I feel, like you just said, Margaret, a reasonable compromise, taking away, say, a dozen units. That sounds like a reasonable compromise to me, it really does. I bet the applicant would still get their tax credits and still get their grant money. Because what it is for the applicant is this is a profit deal. So,
It's a nonprofit.
Oh, wait, but I have their goal sheet, and
Right,
I
it
can
needs-
tell you how
okay,
much money.
okay, I understand, Margaret, that can be debated, but nonetheless, nonetheless, all I'm saying is that we have people doing jobs with
Right.
salaries that this is attached to.
You would
What-
like a bigger park.
Okay, we
just-
would like a bigger
We need to
park.
talk a little bit before the
Thank
end
you.
of the meeting, so.
Good night.
Thank you.
I have pictures.
I just
of
want
what
I just want to say one thing. The density issue is something that specifically needs to be discussed amongst the board ideally tonight, because if there's going to be any, if the board has questions about density, there's a very specific protocol that is required before we can really consider requesting any changes to density. So that's why, like, it needs to happen sooner rather than later, because it's basically about financial feasibility. So that's, I didn't mean to, like, sound dismissive. It's more just that, like, that's something that if it's going to be on the list of concerns that the board has as a board, anyway.
Okay. I'm not sure where to start. I know you asked about water.
Oh,
sewage.
no, this is specifically still,
Are we still are we still positive?
this is if you have suggestions for changes.
Pictures. This just went up in Granby. Project, Hillside Heights, very similar lot size. They put in 6 duplexes, 12 families, beautiful. I'll give these to you. It's in a horseshoe. It's got easy access for fire, ambulance, all kinds of police. And the 12 families that are in this project were all from Granby. They didn't come from anywhere else. And all the children in this development were already enrolled in the Granby school system, so it didn't overtax the school system. And this project clearly has a limitation on how many.
We're not allowed to consider schools.
Well, I mean, this
I'm
is
just telling you what the
impacting.
state-
This is impacting the town. It's impacting the neighborhood.
I
We can't
understand,
discuss
and
school. We can't discuss safety. We can't discuss
She's not,
parking.
by law, they're not allowed to discuss
I mean,
school
I don't
under
know
this
what you
permit
want me to
application
do. You want me to
process.
break the law? Like, I'm trying to run this process as respectfully as I
Because
can.
the
but when you
taxpayers
suggest,
are going to be responsible for extra students, and there will be.
Right. It's not that we don't hear you and understand the concerns that you have, but we are constrained to follow the law. I mean,
Well, it's not common sense.
well,
If you have, I
you're
did.
not the first person to observe that a law isn't always common sense. But
Do you want to
Okay.
submit that? Do you want to submit those as?
I do.
Okay, why
I
don't you, and
absolutely
you have
do.
information on the back?
Very little, because that was just for. That was an aside.
What's the
to be
name of the
honest.
development?
It's right there.
it's on there's a file.
Oh, okay, all right.
And, to the extent that you feel like, you don't like the way that this law works,
Okay, well, then I'll move on to subject B, and that is performance bonds.
okay, is that so,
That's a waiver. That's a waiver they're requesting. So I think, and it says right here,
can you say just
I-
what you're what it is that you're suggesting?
it's a law, it's in the Miller Act, that there is a law out there that states that there has to be a performance bond provided.
So you're just asking that we not issue the waiver for the performance bond, is that,
I'm looking for this project to be smaller, is what my
okay,
ultimate
so
goal
that's
is.
really what you're asking, okay.
But this all has to go, well, and if you're gonna have the project go through, I would say at least protect the taxpayers, because there are laws in place stating that there has to be a performance bond. The watershed actually has stipulations. I know you were looking before on maintenance and performance bond on the stormwater. I have that for you, if you're
you wanna-
And if you
interested.
could please submit that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to
Okay.
look at it.
And there is also I mean, if you really take the time to read this, and if you let me do it,
We
for
don't
3
have time for
minutes,
that.
Yeah, I mean, we
really don't.
can, we will read it. and-
Yeah,
but there are very specific guidelines that clearly are not met here. I have a copy of Massachusetts Miller Act. You can laugh all you want, I don't care.
I'm not
laughing at you.
Nobody's
Well, he's
laughing
laughing
at
at you.
No. There's Little Miller Act, Massachusetts has a law. Does everybody have a copy?
Because I need to keep one for the,
The performance and maintenance is incredibly stringent on
Do you
the
have a-
storm
you need this
scepter.
one?
And we're not talking
Everybody have one?
100-year storm, we're
Barbara will have
talking,
it and then she can email it. Okay.
the storm water drainage is, the storm drainage is supposed to be checked after every storm. I've got more stuff for you if you want to read.
We really need to
It-
discuss to finish the meeting.
Well, this is the operation and maintenance plan
You
for,
are more than welcome to submit anything.
submitting them.
But you don't, we need to move on to the next
Well-
thing, so.
you know. And my final, do I have 2 more minutes? Do I get
Can
5?
what is this? Is this different?
We
Is
have
this
traffic.
Can I just ask for clarification of what this is in terms of how is this different? Is this something you've
That's
amended
right,
or?
That's right from.
Okay,
that's
so
right
you
from
just pulled
your-
this out of their application?
I absolutely
Okay,
did.
I didn't know whether you had amended something in here.
But I don't
Okay.
understand how it can be in the application and not being adhered to. How can you ask for a waiver for a performance bond when there are very specific guidelines to maintain the system that could doom?
That's fine, I just wanted, I didn't know if this was something you created, I just wanted to clarify, that's all, okay.
Thank you.
No, I have more if I have
We
2 more
don't,
minutes, you do.
we, if you want to submit more in writing, you're welcome to do it at the close of the
Can I
meeting.
submit my map?
You can submit anything, hard copy at the close of the meeting. We need to have a little bit of discussion time, and the meeting is supposed to be over in about 6 minutes, so,
There's also a question of the amount of money. That is $675,000
We need to have discussion time.
for,
so,
I think the best way, and I understand your frustration.
very.
Okay, the best way for you to get all of this information to us is to put a packet together, give it to Barbara, and it will be dispersed to each one of us. And we look at every piece of paper that is given to us. We read every letter, every concern, every transmission, because we understand that we're trying to listen to you, okay? And it's just, we're on a very tight timeline, and we need to discuss things amongst ourselves as well, and the only time we can do it is when we are here in front of everyone. The reality is we cannot discuss this outside of this room with each other.
right.
So that's why the best way for this information to be disseminated is to be sent to Barbara. All right?
Okay, thank you.
You asked for sewer. There are 6-inch lines on Parsons Street,
We're gonna
8-inch.
get, we're asking for DPW to get back to us about their thoughts on sewer.
I spoke to the fire department. No.
I'm sorry, we really need to have some discussion of the board. There will be public comment time at the next meeting. If you have written comments, you are welcome to submit them. I'm sorry, we just are out of time.
I just have one question for your
You
advisor.
can ask Jessica a question after the hearing.
I'm the city planner, you can visit me during office hours as well. I'm in the building Monday through Thursday from 8 to 5 o'clock.
Okay, fine.
But
I'll
it's,
ask you.
yeah, it's just, we can, like what John was just saying, we can only talk here, and we need to talk. To talk. Okay, I think in terms of the next, like where we're going from here, we've gotten our peer reviews.
Mhm.
And so the next thing that we need to do is we need to develop our list of concerns. Because of course we have to agree, well, 3 of us, in the end, anyway, have to agree on whatever decision we're gonna make. And so we need to get on the same page about what are the issues that people are thinking about that we're gonna need to resolve in order to issue a decision that 3 people can sign on to. And, you know, obviously, as I said earlier, like, we need to do that now because of course if there's gonna be things where we're gonna be asking for more information or we decide we need another review of some sort, we're kind of running out of time to get those done.
Okay. All
So-
right, and I guess, last meeting, we kind of went through and we
Right.
said, these are the things that we're concerned about. And, I kind of thought that was where we were headed.
Right. Now, there wasn't, like, at the last meeting, the list that I had, was some concern about the physical appearance of the structures.
And we'd asked Valley CDC to come back with a presentation of some sort of what is it gonna look like when you're driving down Parsons Street.
Oh, it's gonna fit into the.
Right, Photoshop in
community.
what the buildings are gonna look like, so we can kind of really get a presentation of what that was gonna look like. And I guess you do have it.
Yes, we have it.
Of course.
Right, this is, can you guys stay like a little bit
I can stay
late,
a
or do
little
you
bit.
need, can everybody
I
stay
can
just a little
stay,
bit late?
yeah.
Okay, can you guys stay just a tiny bit late? Okay. We would love to see that.
You know, I mean, I think that's gonna help move us a little bit further forward.
Do you need some help?
I might. Handout?
Oh.
If you do it both that way.
I happen to have an extra copy of that for planning office as well. Thank you.
That's what.
Yep, one for city council for planning, thank you.
Well, that's probably too close.
Yeah, it's a little
Yeah.
bit.
Is there a way that we can set it up so that possibly the board and
Yeah,
the public can see
how
it
about
at the
if
same
we-
time?
How about
Is
if
that-
we all stand up and you put it along here?
Yeah, so
and we just
the community
come
can
out?
see it.
Yeah, because that's really.
That could go on the table and this could.
Yeah, you can put that right across it.
Yeah.
Put that right up here.
This is what's,
Little limbo action going there.
this is the existing streetscape along Parsons, taken for a number of blocks. And it's to basically show the character of the neighborhood and size of buildings. This is taken across the street, and it's basically taped together. The rendering down here, this is the apartment complex adjacent to our lot.
No, the picture at the end though, that's not quite to the
That's-
same.
that's the
That is to
scale.
scale? Really?
That's the six-unit building that's gonna front Parsons Street, and that's the size of it.
That's to scale with the ones up top, or is that to
Yes.
scale with? Because
It's to scale with the ones up top and the apartment complex. So we did that just to show roughly what one of the larger buildings that's within the neighborhood, and that's the 6-unit that is fronting Parsons Street right here, which is one of our bigger buildings. Also, this is a photorealistic image of looking down Parsons Street, both north and south, and existing and proposed imaging in the 6-unit building with the trees that will be planted there. And this is looking back, going north on Parsons' existing apartment complex and the 6-unit building along Parsons. So this gives you a sense on both character of neighborhood, but also size of the building that we are proposing that's going to create the streetscape scene along Parsons Street. We tried doing a panorama shot, but it was just too out of scale. It didn't, and you don't really see a streetscape in panorama anyway. So we thought this would be more helpful.
yeah. Yeah. No, that's what he's just saying. Oh, wait, in the top. Right, that's just show us what it looks like now. And this is what it looks like. Oh, great. Yeah, no, I think that's really
Right.
Okay, so could you, if you put that on the end
The
there?
neighborhood's to the right.
Right, it's the same.
Yeah. Purposely drawn.
We have not selected final color scheme yet for the buildings, so this is just an option that Valley CDC was considering. Was this exercise helpful to?
Really, I mean, I really would have thought that would, I thought it was taller. Like this is,
It's a 27-foot tall. It is taller than many of the smaller houses on Parsons Street,
Right.
but
Right, no, I thought it would be significantly taller in comparison to the apartment.
no.
That's what I was thinking.
It is taller than many apartments, but not.
I picture these holding up as
Yeah, no, I've got it.
Well, and I think the one thing that the apartments have going for them is if you look at this end, it's built up quite a bit. There's 4 or 5 steps.
Yeah, that's true.
So, the elevation.
That's
And
why
ours are-
That's why
it's not as
Yeah.
much shorter.
And ours are egg grade.
Right.
These are just some of the color schemes that we've been looking at, you know, in some of the buildings, which we,
Yeah, I really.
Okay. So the color scheme that's shown.
is actually similar to that,
Okay.
but that's just on a different building. And none of these are set at all.
Those are internal, because some of them go down to 1 story.
Right.
So this, but on the street, on Parsons, it's 6 houses.
Do you feel like you're, because you were the.
Yeah, no, and you know, I think
Did you have any questions about this, Fran? Thank you.
it was, you know, what's it gonna look like in the neighborhood?
To the left,
Not to the right of the neighborhood, to the left of the neighborhood only. Nothing to the right.
Yeah, no, that's below.
Nothing.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be
Okay,
open. on Parsons Street.
I think we should do more of our.
Take it down.
Yeah. As much as I would like to hide behind it, I don't think.
Are comments allowed on that presentation?
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
You are more than welcome to submit written comments, and we will have some public time next week. And we can certainly ask, can you bring those back next week in case people want to make comments?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I mean, the elephant in the room, to the there's one, I think has to do with density. Oh, sorry. Well, so what I had from my list from last time was the physical appearance in the neighborhood. There was the, still just seeking the clarification about the fire issues, which I feel like have been resolved.
Yes.
There was the wanting the letter from BayPAC, which we now have. So, you know, the water quality issues, I guess, for the lack of a better term. And there's some questions about water pressure and sewer lines, which were getting addressed. Yeah, that's what I was sort of thinking with water quality issues was aquifer.
Density.
Right, so density, if
Density was an issue.
so if I think if density is something that people are feeling like they will want to do something like, the only way that we can consider density is by having a financial, I mean, we can ask you about density, but I think you've basically already said the density, you can't reduce units and still be financially feasible. And so I think the step for us is if there's a density issue that needs to be resolved in order for us to have 3 votes to issue a decision, the step is to ask for a financial feasibility review. And so that's what, if we're going to do that, we need to do that, because otherwise there's not enough time, right? I personally am not, I understand that there are concerns about the density. It is not something that I guess I take, I don't know, it doesn't seem as out of character with the neighborhood for me. It's not something that I would hold up my vote, but obviously I'm just one vote. So if there's a consensus that, if there's a majority vote that we need a financial feasibility study, we need to request that.
I think that we should request one.
I do too.
Okay. Then I will talk to Edie about doing that, since she was helpful in getting us figuring out how to do the stormwater and traffic. Are there any other things that we should have on this list going forward?
Well, I think, there was a discussion brought up about the, when you posed out the question about, good ideas or positive ideas, one came out about increasing the area of the park. And Pocket Park
Right.
wasn't something that, and I don't know whether, relocating or adjusting that first building on the left
That maintenance?
would help in growing that park area.
The first building, which building do you mean?
As you come in, it's the first building on the north side or on the left. If that was shifted
Oh,
to the left or west, would that?
wait, can you go show me what you mean?
Sure. Basically, you have, a common area and a pocket park. But if you took this and shifted it this way, would that then increase this park area and allow for a larger area for the park? As opposed to having 2 park areas, it would help that.
Wouldn't that be into the road? Well, we can, so anyway, so increasing park size would be something that we would want to ask
Right.
about.
Yeah, but that's just my, a simple look at, if you shift that building over, would that allow for, a larger park area?
Okay. Physical appearance, water pressure, sewer lines, the aquifer water quality, density, the size of the park.
We should review the performance bonds too.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking I'll just do that. And I think that's sort of with the water quality issues. I'll do it that way.
And I gotta tell you, I'm still not convinced on the architectural aesthetics of it.
So that would be
Appearance.
I just want to make sure we've got
Yep.
all the
Yeah.
things on the list.
The screening, whether it is a berm, whether it's a fence, whether it's arborvitae, what's going to be the best way to create some sort of screening. Yeah, that's the perfect word.
So the issues that next time is I feel comfortable promising that there will be some public speak time at the next meeting. I'm not sure whether there will be further public speak time after that. There might be, but just in the interest of letting everybody know what's happening, it's possible that there won't be. So the issues that are of particular interest to us are physical appearance, the water pressure and sewer lines, which we're getting addressed by DPW. If there is new information about water quality issues, I suppose, like, obviously if there's something new, we'd be interested in
Well,
hearing
and,
about
and
that.
just to clarify what water quality issues are,
The bar-
stormwater,
right.
DEP review.
Right. And this obviously goes for us too. These are the issues that we're concerned about. Whether there's, a way to increase the park size, and then screening, and the density, financial feasibility. So I will get with Edie and Jess and see what we can do to move us forward as far as the financial feasibility study. Is there any other information or like fact gathering that people can think of wanting that we should be getting started on now so that we can consider it? No. Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Then I think that's it, and we will be back here in June at 7 p.m. again. June.
Hold on.
June 14th.
Yeah, June 14th. June 14th at 7 p.m. And this will.
There may or may not be time for public speak on June 14th.
There will be on June 14th. However, it won't be like totally open-ended. If there's a lot of interest in people wanting to talk, we'll probably do what we did at the beginning meetings where we limit it to time to 5 minutes apiece.
Is it just going to be limited to the topics you just gave a litany of, Margaret?
No, this will be
okay.
the last sort of open public.
Okay.
I would ask that people really try not to repeat themselves. That's just not, like, we've been here, we've heard. If there's new stuff, that would be helpful. But really, it only makes it harder for us to have the time to really work through what we need to work through if people are repeating things that have already been said.
And there again, the more you can submit prior,
Right.
the better.
Early.
It gives everybody a chance to think about it, come up with what do you really mean, and if it need be, right back to you. Hey, what was this that you really meant? And it gives the applicants a chance to come up with an answer.
Just a question, not about any of the topics. If I were to write a letter to the board, rather than say you get a letter from me, is there a way you could actually, because I can frame it so you can at least inform the audience of the topics that are contained in the letter, so if they're interested in seeing it or not. Is that okay?
Wait, I'm not sure what you're saying.
If I were to write you a letter, because I know from being kind of wordy, so the idea is a lot of times in meetings.
Resist the
people
urge?
People accept letters and just say, we got a letter from this individual. And nobody here knows what it said.
Oh, well, they're all available.
I believe Barbara has been collecting everything and putting them into packages
Yeah.
and sending them out to those that are interested. And she's got a list of email addresses, and anybody is welcome to go stop by city clerk's office and pick up a copy of the package. She's got six comment packages from this 40B process that's available to anybody who wants to look at them.
Okay,
So,
because I can list it by topic.
If you want to, however you want to present it, we're going to read it either way, and it's available to the public either way.
Okay.
So, and I mean, I guess if it's a formatting thing, maybe talk to Barbara, because she's the one who has to actually like deal with getting stuff out and organized, but.
Can we infer from your list that if things were brought up previously and are not on your list, you don't care about it? For example, the bonding process was brought up.
That performance bond is on the list.
It's on the list.
Okay, proximity, they're looking for a waiver for the distance requirements between the units, I believe.
Yeah, I feel like, I think
Wouldn't all the waiver items be?
Yeah, I
for
mean,
discussion?
obviously the waiver items are what will need to be addressed ultimately. I mean, I think this is where our concerns are at this point. As far as the spacing of the buildings, we asked to have it addressed by the building inspector and the fire chief, and they have said that there is no problem in their perspective. So I think that was satisfactory to us as a board.
But if you hear comments from the fire personnel off the record, they differ.
We can't have anything off the
I'm
record.
just throwing that out there because I would like it to be thrown out.
It needs to come in on the record, or we can't consider
Well,
it.
it's sort of on the record.
But if it isn't in writing, like the fire chief spoke to you, but he didn't put it in writing, so.
I can ask him to put it in writing if that would be preferable.
That would definitely be
Definitely,
preferable.
Because I know one of the trucks will not, the big ladder truck is 48 feet long. That's a no-go.
Protect those to get it right.
Margaret,
I know.
not an issue with this, a procedural question.
Yes.
6 months, 40B says 6 months, and you close the thing and make a decision. Is there any provision in the 40B law that you can request an extension of time? Because it seems to me like your list of questions and concerns is getting larger instead of smaller at this point. I don't know how you're supposed to make a decision that quickly. So I'm
Well,
just
the
asking the
public
question,
hearing ends.
is there anything in the 40B
The
law?
public hearing has to end within 180 days. That's the state law. There's no exceptions
No
for that.
exceptions.
No, there's a reason for that. You know,
I'm sure there
yeah.
is.
So,
I don't want to go there.
No,
believe me.
and they have 40 days to write their decision after the close of the public hearing.
Okay.
So they have until October to draft, to consider and draft the decision of the close of the hearing date at the end of August.
I just wanted to
Yep.
know if
No,
there
there's no
was
exception.
any option for the board to ask for an extension
No.
or not.
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just one final comment.
No, we're gonna, I just think, like, yeah, we're not closing the hearing, we're leaving the hearing open, but we are adjourned for
You're
tonight.
gonna continue the
We're
hearing?
thank you,
Continue.
I'm like sitting here, going like, what is the word?
You're going to continue the hearing
Yes, we're
until
continuing the hearing,
June
Till
14th.
June.
till June.
June 14th at 7 p.m.
Yes.
Gotta say the whole thing. Sorry.
No, well, we just said it like 5 minutes ago.
I know.
Yes, we are, the hearing is continued to June 14th at 7 p.m.
Would you like to block it from adjourn?
Yeah, somebody want to move to.
I'll make a motion.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.